Hello and welcome to the Keep Dancing podcast. We're keeping busy during the 3-week break by having some in-depth chats with Strictly fans who enjoy the show in different ways. First up, we're talking to Rob Furber, who blogs at entertainmentodds.com and uses his knowledge of Strictly and other reality TV shows to boss the betting markets. Hi Rob, shall we start by talking about how you got into entertainment betting and what part Strictly played in that?
Hi Ellie, yeah. It was a long time ago now, actually. Thinking back, it was probably, I think, the Darren Gough series of Strictly. So what was that, 2005?
Yeah, I remember it well. I'm originally from Barnsley, so it was a big deal when old Goughy did really well.
Yeah, it was that series. I mean, I was sitting there in the living room watching Darren Gough, and I mean, early on, you know, the bookmakers had dangled some prices, and I had a speculative bet on Gough at the start of the series, and he was 25-1. And I watched, and sort of, you know, week by week, he sort of went on the classic kind of Strictly journey, and it was great. And I was watching it and thinking, you know, this is really interesting, because I think this is something, you know, that I can actually make some money on. So, I mean, I come from a journalist background, and I suppose I kind of realised that it was all about kind of reading the edit of the show. I already had a knowledge of betting odds, because I was always interested in sports betting. And yeah, you know, just watching the show, you thought, well, Darren Gough, you know, he's got a really nice profile for this show. I think Middle England are really loving this guy.
And he moves
so
well for a big lad.
He did, and he showed that it was kind of okay for kind of, you know, tough lads to dance, didn't he?
And started a sort of a noble history of cricketers doing surprisingly well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, you know, after my Gough success, then it was like, you know, lightning struck twice when Ramprakash pitched up, and I thought, you know, he was the back pre-series, and then of course he came out, and I think week one he was really good, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And again, that was you know, that was a really good win for me. So I mean, back in those early days, the odds compilers they dangled some, you know, very generous odds, because I suppose it was a bit of a niche market. You know, TV betting was something new, and you know, I was just able to take advantage, basically, of some of these what we call ricks. You know, where they've made mistakes with the pricing. And yeah, I had those early successes on Strictly, and I suppose I did some trading on X Factor as well, because, you know, that was on ITV. And we had Celebrity Big Brother, and I was sort of applying my skills to all these different shows. And like I was saying, it's just all about analysing the edit, really, and also, you know, getting a feel for the profile of the contestants and how you think the viewers at home are liking them and maybe not liking them.
Yeah, because the Strictly casting is always very interesting, because there's, you know, some very straight down the line sort of Saturday night BBC stalwart, you know, family show oriented people, and then there's slightly sort of left field, like, what is somebody who was not necessarily a major character in Hollyoaks doing on here, and the random big names. It is a very strangely cast show, I think.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and you look at this year's cast, and it's almost like they've got these boxes that they have to tick, don't they? And they've followed the exact same path that they've done in previous series. You know, you've got your sort of, you know, your Will Young, your male pop star. Then you've got your former girl band contestant, Louise Redknapp. Then you've got your Hollyoaks guy, Danny Mack. Then you've got your big American signing, Anastasia, and, you know, it just goes on and on like that. So they seem to like to, you know, tick certain boxes to get their mix of contestants.
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet where I've basically, you know, got people set out into, like 8, 9 different celebrity categories. And you can basically sort of do a bit of celebrity chromatography and work out whereabouts in the finishing order they're going to settle based on what kind of celebrity they are. And I guess that is basically one of the things that's central to your methods. But
it is, yeah.
Yeah, going back to the very early days of the TV betting markets, where did these original odds, when it was a smaller market, actually come from? Just figures pulled out of educated guesses at the actual betting markets?
It was, really. I mean, that was the thing. They were kind of playing in the dark to a certain extent, the bookmakers, and I felt that my knowledge could be superior to the odds compilers, and it really was. And that was kind of the golden age, if you like, of TV betting in those early days, because it was also when online betting was just starting. So, you could set up these accounts with various firms, and then you could delve into the strictly outright, and then you'd have your elimination markets as well, and so forth, and you could get decent amounts down with the bookmakers back then. But I mean, now it's evolved, and now they're sort of a lot more savvy about these shows, and probably because they've lost to clients who are very clued up like me. They're a lot more sort of stingy now with the prices that they offer, and of course it's a lot harder to actually get the money down online because they're just not willing to do business with people like me who are able to turn a nice profit on TV betting. So that if you're marked up as a TV betting specialist, if you like, because they're like bean counters now, and they're analysing. They can easily do it with online accounts. Oh, this guy, look at him. He's only betting on Strictly and X Factor and Eurovision, and he's making a profit. No, close his account. So it's the accounts now just don't last very long, and it's very, very difficult to get the money down. But I always have Betfair. Betfair is a betting exchange, and it's nothing to do with the bookmakers, and it's just members of public betting, and I can invest my money on there. Although ideally, you really want to be betting with the bookmakers as well, because generally on Betfair, it's people like me who are, following the shows very, very seriously and very professionally. Mm-hmm. So, it's a little bit harder to see where the value lies with the odds. So, yeah, it's good fun though.
Okay, so earlier you were talking about reading the edit. I think everybody will be familiar with the feelings that they've experienced as a consequence of the edit, but can you explain to me what you mean by reading the edit?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, Elliot. I don't want to bore you or your listeners too much with all the kind of intricacies, but Strictly, it's followed a more manipulated path, I would say, down the years. I think in the early days, they just let it kind of just grow organically, and I actually loved it for that, because there was more spontaneity, and it was less scripted. That's my memory of it anyway. Maybe I've just become more savvy with my analysis, and I see all of the clever kind of machinations that the producers are doing now. But for instance, with the running order, this is key. And time and again now on Strictly, it's all teed up for the last couple who dance, and you can almost guarantee that they're going to top the leaderboard. And it's that old tried and tested formula that they want to end the show on a high note. But that kind of disappoints me a little bit. I'd much rather that it was more random. It seems like the judges' comments are sort of prepared, and almost, they're willing to sort of ignore the mistakes because it wasn't in the script, and that particular dance was the one that they wanted to be, the one that they were giving the highest scores for. And as you get into the show's, latter weeks, running order does become even more important. So, whoever's on first, that's a distinct disadvantage, and what they're trying to do there. And often it's a case of, the ones on early are the ones that they're looking to sort of, get into the dance-off to eliminate. I mean, X Factor is still sort of the king of the dark arts, if you like, but the BBC, I would say, has kind of taken a leaf out of Psycho's book and, is following a lot more manipulated path, and they really do manage the public vote very, very astutely now.
Wow. The 2015 series, where I think that maybe, I can't tell whether they were trying to manage it for Kelly to win or whether they didn't realise what they'd got into by having a member of the Wanted there. What did you make of the 2015 series? It seemed like there was only one way it was going from week 3.
Yeah, I mean, it was a series that I look back on now and it puts a smile on my face because I won a lot of money last year thanks to Jay McGuinness winning the series. He was my pre-series pick. I knew that he had a bit of a dance background and, there was stuff that I'd unearthed on YouTube and so on. And, well, I think Aliona was quite clever in that week 1, he didn't come out all guns blazing, because you don't really want that because then there's absolutely zero kind of journey, really. Mm-hmm. I remember she did that with Matt Baker, didn't she? And it was a real error. And I think maybe she'd learned from that. So she sort of held him back a little bit. And, of course, I mean, it was still quite early in the series, wasn't it? It was maybe only week 3 when he came out with her and they did that brilliant jive.
Yeah.
And like you say, from that point, it's like, well, how does Jay lose? This is a foregone conclusion. And I was happy because I'd got great odds on him. And, he rapidly became an odds-on favourite. But there's still, the weekly elimination market. So that's always of interest to me. So, week by week, I'm still totally engrossed trying to analyse, who's likely to be in the dance-off, who's going to be in the bottom 2. You can bet on that. Mm-hmm. And then who's going to be eliminated. And also who's likely to get the highest score. And the lowest score, but those markets, they're quite hard to get money down on because there's not much liquidity on Betfair and the bookmakers tend to sort of duck them now. But yeah, I mean, then come the final, like you say, it was very, very odd. I mean, what went on there, I have no idea. It was like they'd got annoyed with Jay and Aliona and they tried to do their best to derail them, and it was all about Kelly and Kevin, wasn't it? They really pushed Kelly and Kevin, and it actually made the final quite nerve-wracking for me. I mean, I was still okay. I'd kind of covered on Kelly. I wasn't going to lose if Kelly won, but my big profit lay on Jay and Aliona winning the series, and the markets actually went into kind of turmoil on Betfair. Kelly was back down, virtually. She was maybe pushing Jay for favourite when the betting was suspended. It was very much up in the air, when the announcement came as to who had won. And of course, when Jay and Aliona were called the winners, it was a lot of relief for me and delight as well that they'd actually overcome kind of the show's best efforts. It seemed for them to not win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like a conspiracy theory, but I mean, there was the things in the press the other week from the Jordans saying that the show is desperate to get a Clifton family victory by any means necessary. And I don't know, I really liked Kevin when he first came on the show, but the various bits of comedy VTs and mugging and that ridiculous Fresh Prince routine last year, Kevin has spent all of his sort of charisma points with me and I'm kind of done with him.
Well, you talk for so many people when you say that, Elliot. That makes me laugh because I know a few other people who trade strictly seriously, and their view of Kevin from Grimsby has gone in a similar direction. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's the Clifton love-in on the show. When you saw their faces, actually, when Jay and Aliona won the series, that was priceless to me.
It was nearly sort of RuPaul's Drag Race levels of oh no face.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like Schadenfreude at its best. But I mean, Kevin's popular, isn't it? I mean, he's made the final 3 times. So, and they've given him a good partner again this year. So maybe they do favour him. I just wonder as well, maybe it was because Jay and Aliona refused to reprise their jive, and that put their noses out of joint, and they thought, okay, we're going to try and make sure you don't win.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a sort of a are you jeopardizing our viewing figures kind of move, which was totally unnecessary because the Strictly final is going to get massive numbers anyway.
It is, yeah, and it kind of left a bad taste in the mouth because, I think Strictly, compared to X Factor, has a real feel-good feeling about it. It's really enjoyable viewing for families up and down the country. And that final, it was really quite nasty. They were so sort of negative, weren't they?
Yeah.
When they were doing their assessments of the dances and so on. And I just thought they've actually completely ruined the final.
Yeah, I hope they don't put themselves in that position this year. Continuing on techniques. So one of the things that I like to do over the course of the series is sort of reverse engineer the televote from who's in the bottom two and the judges' scores. And I reckon that the televote is basically stable throughout the series. Am I crazy doing that? Is that worth doing?
No, you're not. You're not crazy, Ali. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, that's a key component of my kind of my trading skills, if you like, when it comes to Strictly. You look at the leaderboard at the end of the night, and then you think, okay, let's factor in the public vote. Let's think about who's going to be towards the top of the public vote tonight, who's going to be towards the bottom, and then let's see, who ends up in jeopardy of being in the bottom two. And I base my betting, on those appraisals. I do think the vote on Strictly is fluid to a degree, in the sense that the kind of the pimp slot, couple, I think regularly get a big public vote boost.
Sorry, by pimp slot, just to clarify for people who aren't don't read all the blogs, that's the very last one before the end of the show.
It is. It's the closer. It's the show closer. And like I was saying before, it seems, the way with Strictly, that is invariably teed up to be top of the leaderboard and to get, the eulogizing of the judges. So, of course, a knock-on effect of that is the viewers at home are like, yeah, that was great. So they'll vote for that. So you've got that sort of changing on a weekly basis, I think. But at the same time, when you've got a couple like Jay and Aliona, who, Jay, he was almost just the perfect contestant for a show like Strictly. It's like, what's not to love about this guy?
He even got a tactical haircut.
He did. I mean, he was humble. He was self-deprecating. He came across so well in interview. It's like you couldn't have built a better contestant to be, well liked by the Strictly voting public. So, no doubt with Jay and Aliona, yeah, their vote would have been high week on week on week. I actually think last year, Anton and Katie, I think they were really well liked by the public, and I think they were towards the top of the vote. But I think that the show did a very clever job in gradually kind of eroding the goodwill towards them, and I thought that was a shame, actually. I mean, they made the final, but they were dead in the water in the final. They were never going to win. They'd sort of knocked the wind out of their sails.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of went for the comedy angle of Anton in the final, and so that automatically removes any credibility that he has there, that he's got Katie there on her own merits.
Yeah, and, I thought she just was on the receiving end of a lot of petty criticism week on week, and I was just reading that as they're doing really well on the public vote, and they want to just sort of knock them down a peg or two. And then meanwhile, there was somebody like Georgia May Foote, who I don't think was doing very well on the public vote at all, and you could see in the kind of the way in which she consistently got late running order slots. I haven't got the stats to hand, but if you compare her running orders with Anton and Katie, she was on after Katie so many weeks, and they were really having to push them. They were eulogizing them, and they were often on late on the show, and they were pushing them towards the top of the leaderboard. And I just thought, she's struggling on the public vote, and they're trying to keep her out of harm's reach and ensuring that she at least gets to the final, because they seem to have an obsession with we want the best dancers to make the final, and that sometimes works against actually what the public enjoy.
The public love a trier.
Yeah, and they want to be entertained, and I think back to like John Sargent, I mean, I think he was doing incredibly well on the public vote when he withdrew from the show. And it's like, why don't they just let the public have their way? I don't know. Sometimes there seems to be a clear conflict between what the judges are pushing for and actually who the public at home are liking and rooting for. And I think like last year they picked the completely wrong couple to try and push for the win in Kelly and Kevin. Yeah,
I mean, if Georgia and Giovanni's real-life possible romance had come out slightly earlier, then they could have pushed them for the win.
Yeah, and that was like Cara Twainton, wasn't it, with Artem?
Yeah, I mean, I totally fell for that story, and so did they.
And yeah, the wider voting public did as well, and that they really pushed that narrative because it helped Cara. They wanted a female winner that year.
Mm-hmm. They do like the young actress that they select every year to do well, because presumably she'll do well on the tour, and it works well with her agent presumably getting West End work, which most of them do a couple of years after they've done Strictly. But if the young actress that they select doesn't overlap in sort of terms of familiarity with the Strictly voting demographic, she is going to struggle, and they are going to have to push her.
Yeah, well, I think this is a constant difficulty that the show has, because young, glamorous, attractive females, I think, consistently will struggle on the vote. I think Strictly favours, a kind of a photo fit, kind of safe, good-looking, middle-class male winner. So that's why Will Young is the favourite to win this series. He he ticks the boxes for the Strictly voting demographic. And yeah, you look at the field this year, and you just kind of know from previous years that those attractive young females, they're going to struggle to get the vote. Like Laura Whitmore. Who else have we got? I mean, Claudia, I suppose, has got a bit of an Olympic feel-good factor behind her, potentially. That might help her a bit. Daisy Lowe, I think she's going to struggle.
Well, there's some question mark over whether she's going to fall for the model curse of not actually being able to look beautiful when she moves.
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah, but we see these type of contestants consistently, being casualties, and it's only when the show really has to work at pushing them to the final that they get there. Like a Georgia May Foote last year. They can push them to the final, but they invariably they can't help them win. I mean, Abby Clancy is a different case. I mean, they managed that series very well because they wanted a female winner, mm-hmm. and if you remember, it was an all-female final. But that was cleverly stage managed by the show for me, because they were desperate for a female winner. Caroline Flack, I mean, I think that was maybe the show trying to stick two fingers up at X Factor, and they really got behind her. But they had to sort of be very clever in promoting her, and also in that series, they decimated the males. All the potential winners on the male side had been eliminated come the final. So you only had, I'm trying to think back, it was the guy from Blue, Simon Webb, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And
he sort of blew it on the show dance, I think.
And the Toey guy, Mark
Wright.
Yes.
I've just got the spreadsheet open.
But they were never going to win. So, I just think there is dark arts at work with Strictly.
Yeah, so we've spoken about at length now about these production techniques that are used to, push winners and enhance stories and make it, an entertaining reality soap as in addition to being a competition. What shows that are on do you think actually sort of cross the line into leading and misleading the audience?
Yeah, well, I mean, X Factor leads the way in that. I mean, it's just horrendous. You know, it's all about getting the public emotionally involved, and they'll do the tear-jerking backstories, and they'll have the VTs about the dead relative or the the terminally ill cousin or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll wheel it out for the sake of that contestant, then getting a strong public vote.
Yeah.
I do think Strictly has started to plumb the depths a little bit, doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
to a degree.
if I could change anything about the Strictly format, it would be to restrict the training VTs to training. The comedy ones look so cheap for Saturday night TV. The tear-jerking ones are just mawkish and obvious.
Yes.
And I really think that, especially last year when they were trying desperately not to destroy Doctor Who's ratings by chucking it around in the schedules, you could have a manageable length TV show and do the results in the same night if you wanted to. If you didn't have 5 minutes of people who can't do comedy doing comedy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't like the VTs anymore. I think it's just become so confected, really, the whole thing. And I actually preferred it when they had the results show on a Saturday night, and I loved it. When it was live, you had that jeopardy, and the dance off live, I think, would be a fantastic thing. The Sunday show for me. Well, I suppose I don't talk for the audience of Strictly because I want to know the result of the dance-off. So I'm checking Digital Spy at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night to see who's been eliminated, who's in the dance-off and who's been eliminated. So the Sunday show is pretty much meaningless apart from just tuning in to see exactly how it went on the dance-off and, how the judges scored it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just don't like the pre-recorded format. I find that dull. I mean, X Factor, they still have live shows on a Saturday and a Sunday, and that enhances the show because there's that great sense of jeopardy attached to it. And I do think Strictly, are missing a trick by not having a live, live dance off on a second show on the Saturday night.
Yeah, the Sunday show just does not feel vital. You're not really missing much if you've sort of just got it on in the background while you're sorting dinner out. You'll sort of go, oh, the person I sort of expected to leave is leaving, and here is a badly staged musical number. Great. But yeah, there could be an improvement to the Sunday night format.
Yeah, and then, the theme weeks, I just find them very tired and just so over the top. I mean, the Halloween one, the way they get them dressed, I just think, what are they doing? And it's almost like there you can see, well, are they trying to get that couple eliminated? Because, look how they've dressed them up. They look awful, and there's going to be no connection there with the viewer.
Halloween week often suffers because they're at the point in the series where there's slightly more couples than there are Halloween-y things to dress up as. So somebody always ends up being, I don't know, a scary doll. And yeah, it looks bad. Theme weeks have, just by repetition now, movie week is looking sad and tired. And we're going to end up actually reprising numbers from previous years.
Yeah, that happens a lot now, doesn't it? Yeah. Same choice of songs, and yeah, I don't like them. I don't like the movie week. God, I'm sounding like a miserable curmudgeon.
We do enjoy the show. It is very fun.
I do. I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, it's about winning money. So I'm not your usual kind of viewer, I suppose. But from an entertainment perspective, I do enjoy Strictly. I certainly prefer it to X Factor, which I just think is just so grubby. The whole way that they just manipulate the whole thing. It's just awful.
coming from our Eurovision backgrounds, the thing that they're doing with fabulous pop star Sarah Alto is really weird to see, because they had her on as sort of comedy foreigner.
Yes.
Very strange, given that, you know, she was, you know, a heartbeat away from being the Finnish Eurovision entry this year. And she's extremely accomplished and a songwriter and does a lot of film work. It was very weird how they're presenting her.
I know, yeah, that sums up X Factor, doesn't it? And I mean, there's a chance she might get in as a wild card, I think. But yeah, just typical X Factor, really, to sort of go down that road with, you know, with her.
Yeah. What's been your biggest entertainment betting success so far? And are there any low moments you want to share with us?
Well, there's lots of highs and lows, Ellie. That's kind of the nature of what I do. Thankfully, more highs than lows.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, with Strictly, I mean, I got fond memories of Chris Hollins winning because that was a big win for me. That year, the Daily Star published a story, a vote leak, saying that Hollins was topping the vote every week. And the Daily Star actually has a tremendous track record on these vote leaks, certainly did at that time. And he was still like 28-1. It was an unbelievable price looking back. And, you know, you just had to back him on the back of that. It's like, well, you know, he's going to go very close to winning if he's topping the vote. And that was kind of, it was still at a time where there weren't so many dark arts, but I do recall, I think it must have been the semi-final, and there was scheduled to be a dance-off, and I was still nervous about that they might, you know, very cleverly try and get Chris into the bottom two and then, you know, kick him off in the dance-off. But then I tuned into It Takes Two. I think it was on the Monday night, and Claudia, because there'd been a lot of speculation, is there going to be a dance-off in the semi-final? And then she officially announced there will not be a dance-off in the semi-final. And then it was just like a complete feeding frenzy on Betfair, as people like me just latched onto the fact that Chris Hollins was, in theory, a certainty to win the series because he could not be beaten, topping the public vote, as we believed he was. And as it turned out, that's exactly what happened. He got through the semi-final, and then he won the final, and he won me a lot of money. So that was great.
So the winners, they all tend to have a big Charleston that everybody goes mad for, and I don't know, the joy with which Charlestons are greeted makes me feel like an alien, because I've seen enough of them now, and I could happily never see another Charleston again. But I guess that is one thing to watch out for when the Charlestons start happening. Who gets the big iconic one? Who gets that little bit more effort with the props and the setting and the choreography on the Charleston?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a game changer. And, you know, Chris Hollins, he was just the perfect photo fit of Middle England. You know, you could see why he was topping the public vote. You know, it was just with his breakfast profile, and he sort of created this sweet, I suppose, endearing partnership with Ola. You know, he called her Ola Chops, didn't he?
Yeah.
Nauseating to begin with, but when you stand to win a lot of money, you don't mind that ultimately. But that was a good one for me. Tom Chambers as well. That was memorable because, again, if you remember, I was pretty sure that he was topping the public vote, Chambers, and I think again it was the semi-final, wasn't it? And there was due to be a dance-off. And watching that show, it was like, well, they're trying to get Chambers into the dance-off and they're going to then eliminate him. But all these people rang up, didn't they, in fury to the BBC and said, because of the voting, the way it was on the on the leaderboard,
Yeah.
Tom couldn't escape the bottom two. Was that right? Something like that.
Yeah, it was a sort of a weird maths.
Exactly. Yeah, and then they announced you're all through to the final, and again it was like from that point it's like, well, Chambers wins. So again there was a complete frenzy backing Chambers to win, and of course he went on to win. So that was a joy. But the low moments would be Matt Baker losing to Cara Toynton, because I'd backed Matt Baker quite heavily, and I got greedy. It was kind of a lesson in not being greedy, because I could have backed Cara come the final and made a nice profit on both of them, but I sat tight with my big Matt Baker profit, thinking I think he's going to just edge it, and of course he didn't. And
the only thing that beats the sort of the nice middle class, not sexually aggressive man is the love story, and the love story won.
That's exactly it. And also, I could see week on week they were just incredibly petty with their criticism of Matt Baker, and they really did their utmost to just gradually erode his vote. And I thought his vote was still potentially robust enough to hold off the kind of, the dark arts, but ultimately it wasn't, because it was the Cara Artem love story, and that was sort of the trump card for them that helped them win. And there was another one like that, which I kind of it's a low moment in a way. It would be Gethin Jones, who I'd backed at big prices, and he was going great guns, and then they put him away in the semi-final. Can you remember it?
Oh,
It was him with Matt D'Angelo and Alicia Dixon, and they desperately wanted a female winner in Alicia. And my view is that Gethin was probably very, very dangerous, at the top of the public vote, and they just completely set him up for losing the semi-final. They got him into the dance-off. They bigged up Matt D'Angelo, who had kind of forgotten his routine the previous week or so, and then there was Len Goodman standing up applauding him, and I thought, oh no, what's afoot here? And Gethin got eliminated, so that was a bit painful. But I mean, yeah, on the other shows there's been highs and lows as well, but yeah, those are the Strictly ones.
So as well as finding it a sort of a tremendously interesting probability experiment and TV production experiment, do you have a favourite Strictly dance for dancers' sake and for entertainment, and whose journey did you find most memorable?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be some of those early series for me, Ellie, because maybe it's nostalgia, rose-tinted spectacles and all that, but there was the financial side as well. But I thought Mark Ramprakash, I thought that was brilliant when he won with Karen. Their partnership for me was really genuine, and I just loved, the way they sort of progressed over the weeks. I just found something very, very honest about them, and what you saw in the training room, you felt that was sort of quite real.
Yeah, and I think Karen Hardy is absolutely fabulous, and I would absolutely love to see her genuineness and her knowledge of dance come in to replace Len when he leaves.
Totally agree. I'd love to see her as the new head judge. Yeah, get her in there. Totally. I think back to their Argentine tango as well. That was one of the standout dances of all the series for me. So powerful at the time. I mean, their show dance was magnificent as well. But and then you mentioned the Charleston and how kind of saccharine you find it, and I suppose it was. But Chris Hollin's Charleston, I kind of, I loved it, but I suppose I am biased because that for me that sealed his win. And I thought he was winning already, but when I saw that, I thought he's definitely got it now. So yeah, I mean, I loved Aliona actually. I thought she was great. She had some great partnerships with Jay last year. I thought that was a great partnership. I like Natalie Lowe. So
yeah, she is a bit of an icon. The best pro to never have won is her sort of tabloid epithet.
Yeah,
So obviously we've talked about 2016 a little bit, and you don't want to give away your whole strategy just yet. But who do you think looks like they'll have an interesting time?
Yeah, I think it looks quite an open year this year, Ellie. I'm not really committing too much at this early stage. I think there's a few sort of big priced contestants who I think might surprise, and you know, in the early weeks we'll see their odds coming down, and there I'm talking about maybe Naga Munchetti. I think she could be very good. I have doubts about her public vote, but I think she could come out in the early weeks and do something good, and you know, we'll see her price contract.
With a lot of the men, you can't really tell until they've done their first Latin.
That's very true. I think Ore, I think he's going to be a real snake hips. I mean, I flagged him up on Entertainment Odds as one of my pre-series picks, and his price is actually virtually halved already, just on the basis of the launch show and him sort of looking like he's got some real good rhythm. I think for the fast Latin, he could be very good. I mean, Joanna Clifton, she's actually a ballroom expert, isn't she? So. Yeah. I think, you know, she'll help him hopefully master that side of things as well. My concern with Ore is I just thought he came across a bit too confident, a bit too cocksure, and that is a potential negative. I think the viewers want to see somebody who's very humble and genuinely humble, not Peter Andre humble, which just comes across as disingenuous.
I still can't believe that happened. Just Peter Andre on Strictly. It didn't seem to fit.
He's very ITV, isn't he? I mean, he's very Iceland. He's just so plastic. I mean, you know, everything he said. I mean, it's the same with the guy from Toei when he was on. You know, he was trying to read from the reality TV book, saying the right things about, you know, I've never danced before and I'm throwing myself into it. Mark Wright.
Oh, yeah, and his mum and his gran.
Yeah, and just didn't buy into it at all. I mean, Will Young, you know, he ticks a lot of boxes.
He does actually have to do it, though, now.
He does. And how's he going to cope with criticism? This is my one question, just thinking back to Pop Idol and, you know, how he did that famous kind of retort to Cal.
That's like 15 years ago now, though. He's an extremely mellow guy.
I think there might be a bit of an edge there still from what I've kind of gleaned, but we shall see. I mean, he'll probably be okay. But the worry for a lot of these guys is if they come out week one and they're brilliant, that can be a real negative because there's just nowhere for them to go. You know, there's very little room for improvement.
Yeah, you have to strive for adequacy in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. The one at a big price that I flagged up on the site is Greg Rutherford. I mean, it's the Nat Lower angle. I think she's a fantastic teacher. I think she'll get the best out of him. And I'm hoping with his sort of Olympic profile that he's going to, you know, get to grips with the technique and improve over the weeks. He could be your classic journey type contestant, and we're long overdue a proper journey winner. And it might just be Greg, but there's a danger there. There's a clear danger that he could just be terrible in the early weeks and not make enough improvement and be an early casualty.
Yeah, all you have to do to get through to sort of Halloween is be better than Ed, Anastasia, Leslie Joseph, and probably Daisy.
Yeah. I mean, Tamika, she's going to be pretty good, I think. She might surprise, but I see sort of an Alison Hammond type trajectory for her. I'm not sure about Claudia. I mean, Claudia was the anti-post favourite with the bookmakers, and I was quite surprised. I think the issue there is her height. I just don't think aesthetically it looks how viewers want to see dances. I mean, you know, her partner, AJ, is similarly quite small, isn't he? But he's still taller than Claudia, and I just think they'll look like junior Strictly contestants.
Oh, yeah. Everybody wants to see sort of basically gazelles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, somersaults and gymnastic skills are only going to take her so far. So I'm not convinced by Claudia, but she is probably one of the more likely female candidates. I mean, Louise Redknapp, I think, is the every woman who could have a decent run on the show. I think she potentially can get a decent public vote over the weeks. But yeah, there's a few in there that might surprise. I mean, Melvin Adoom could be pretty decent, but I'm not sure how popular he's going to be.
Yeah, it seems like people having heard of him doesn't spread much outside the M25.
Yeah, exactly. Who else is there? I think we've covered it. I mean, Leslie's going to be entertaining with Anton. They'll have a run. They'll last a fair while just for the entertainment factor.
Yeah, Judge Rinder.
Yeah, he could surprise as well. He could do okay. I'm not entirely convinced.
He's there for semi-scripted banter with Craig, isn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote that in my preview, funnily enough. I think that's exactly why he's there. It's going to be all those sort of sharp barbs, isn't it? Back and forth between him and Craig.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also slightly already groaning about it. Okay, shall we wrap it up there? So would you like to tell us where we can keep up with you as you follow the Autumn's reality TV?
Yeah, absolutely. I just invite people to check out entertainmentodds.com, and I do analysis of Strictly on there every week. There's an article looking at the eliminations and who might be the next one to be eliminated, and then just giving an overview of the other markets as well. And I also cover X Factor as well. So, we have Strictly and X Factor all through the autumn up until Christmas. There'll be some Sports Personality of the Year coverage, which is very interesting this year because there's so many candidates. Mm-hmm. And then from the start of next year, everything is about Eurovision. So it's sort of the first 5 months of the year that the site changes to Eurovision analysis. But yeah, check out the site, please do. entertainmentodds.com.
That was episode 3 of the Keep Dancing podcast. If you want to get in touch with us and correct us on who got eliminated before Ali Bastian, or if you've got any questions for our Strictly team, you can email us at keepdancingpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter as Keep Dancing Pod, and we've got a Facebook page that you can find by searching for the Keep Dancing podcast. Please join us in the comments. We're also on Tumblr at keepdancingpodcast.tumblr.com. And on all of these pages, there'll be a link where you can subscribe to our RSS feed so that you'll always get our latest episode. We're now in the iTunes directory too, and we'll post links to that page. If you're going to gamble on TV or any other markets, make sure you keep it sensible. Visit gambleaware.com for more information. Thanks for listening. Keep dancing.